Hello and welcome to the Student Space, a podcast for students about high school, life after school, and how to actually be an adult. Today I'm joined by Steph, who is currently studying a double degree at Monash University. In this episode we chat all about her experience in her first few years, about her travel experiences in her degree, and all the things that she wished she knew when she was in Year 11 and Year 12. Enjoy! Before we jump into the chat, I want to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording this podcast and pay my respects to the elders past and present of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. Hey Steph, welcome. So excited to have you today. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. Before we get into it, just introduce yourself. Who are you?
Thanks, Mia. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm currently 22 and I am in my fourth year of engineering and commerce at Monash.
Awesome. Now, before we get into chatting about your degree at Monash, I'm just going to ask you 3 random questions. So don't stress, just answer the first thing that comes to mind, just so we can get to know you a bit better. So when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grow up?
Yep, this one is really embarrassing. I don't even know if it's an official job title, but I really wanted to be a reptologist as I had 2 turtles at the time and they were my whole world. So I wanted to make a career out of it, and it's even in my Year 6 valedictory book, Steph, what do you want to be when you grow up? Reptologist.
So like a zoologist but look after reptiles?
Yeah, just everything reptiles. I think maybe on the science side of things. I don't even think Year 6 Steph knew what it meant, but reptologist. That was my aspiration.
Oh, I actually did not expect that. I thought you were going to be like, I wanted to be in business. Or wow, that really took me by surprise. I love it. Okay, and if you're driving to uni, because I can understand driving to Monash Claydon is quite far. On the drive, what are you listening to? Radio, podcast, music?
Yeah, that's a good one. I do a lot of driving, and usually I'm listening to a podcast. So I really enjoy Shameless, but also I do enjoy listening to music on the way as well. Cool. Anything to sort of take my mind off the stressful day ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And what are you most proud of in the last year?
Wow, that's a big one. Probably my personal growth at uni. I've sort of taken up a bit of a leadership position in a uni student team, and I think I was really excited to just get underway with that and I guess surprise myself a little bit with the potential for that to grow, and I've really enjoyed that. So probably in Precious Plastic Monash and my work with the team there.
That's amazing, and I know we will touch on that a bit further along in our chat, but I'm really keen to hear more. So like we said, you're studying an absolute mammoth of a degree. So it's double degree at Monash Uni at the Clayton campus, so a Bachelor of Commerce with your major in finance and a Bachelor of Civil Engineering. Now, you said you're in your 4th year. Is that the second last year?
Yep. So it is a 5-year course, but for me it is 5.5 because I've done a bit of underloading.
Totally fair enough. And you know what? Everyone does that just to get through in the end. But before we talk about this course, let's rewind back to high school. Tell me about your high school days, your high school experience. What was it like?
Yeah, I loved high school. I think it's sort of a bit of a unique time in that you sort of get to do all the things you enjoy and be with your friends every day. And I know that they tell you that a lot when you're in high school, that you get to see your friends every day, enjoy it. But yeah, I really loved it. I was doing subjects that I enjoyed and had a lot of fun with my friends, and I think got a really good balance of sort of sport, lifestyle, and school. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I played a lot of sport, school sport and sport outside of school as well. And I was a bit of a nerd on the co-curriculars as well. I did chess club, debating.
Chess!
Yeah, all that sort of stuff as well. Really loved getting involved. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun.
I love it. Why not? Just put yourself out there, get involved, and like you said, because you did all of that, it's probably more memorable now.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. And what VCE subjects did you do?
Yeah, I was thinking about this before. So I did French, English, 2 languages, maths, methods and further maths. And then in Year 11 I did psych, and then I also did chem in Year 12.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy. Now we'll talk about this later, but did any of those subjects come in handy for your current course?
Yeah, so definitely the maths side of things came in handy with both engineering and commerce, because I've gone into finance as well. There's a lot of maths involved there. But Yeah, I think the methods came in handy. Probably not so much the French. The chem, surprisingly, not as useful. I haven't pretty much done a lot of chem in uni. But yeah, mainly I think probably the math side of things and English as well, because there's a lot of report writing.
Totally fair enough. Now, what inspired you to choose your course and move away from being a reptologist, if that even is a job?
Yeah, it was a big decision to move away from reptology, my aspirational future, but I think it was probably just at a career night. I think in year 9 I sort of made sure to speak to a lot of people because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that point, and I knew I had a lot of interests. I honestly felt like I could have gone into a few different things and been really happy studying that. I was the sort of student that just really enjoyed learning. I was doing psych, maths, chem, and I enjoyed all of it, so I was a little bit overwhelmed by the options in that sense. So I think that's why I went for Eng-Com, as broadly, throwing the net as broadly as I could. And still, it's a lot of science, which I was interested in, but it's also a lot of application. So I think just being able to speak to people at careers nights allowed me to figure out what's involved in each degree. And then once I knew, I think I could sort of pinpoint engineering and commerce as, I guess, areas that I would be really interested in.
For sure. Now, you mentioned the careers night, but did you also see any careers counsellors or go to any open days?
Yep, so the open days probably came a little bit later when I'd already decided. I think, probably unconventionally, in year 9, decided I wanted to do engineering and commerce at Monash, which was probably a little bit early on. But I think also doing the Moresby testing at school.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I remember that. And we went to the lecture, theatre hall, whatever, and you do the test and they send you, what you would be good at.
Exactly.
That's for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about. The school can contract this company where you sit this test. It's not like you have to study for it, but it tells you what jobs you'd be suited in the future, depending on your communication or your spatial awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
What did they say on the test?
So it said engineering for me, and that probably stemmed me investigating a little bit more, but I sort of just ran with that, and here we are.
There you go. Wow. Well, I wonder what mine said. I'm going to look at it and find out. Now, for the course, what prerequisites did you have to do?
Yep. So for Monash, you had to do maths methods.
Yep.
English, I think, is the prereq as well, and then either chem or physics. So you didn't have to do both, but you had to do one. So I just did chem.
Okay. That's good. Cool. Had you not gotten in, did you have a backup option?
Yes, I definitely had, all of my preferences were basically sort of studying engineering at different unis. I was really interested in going to RMIT. Actually, they have a really great program there, and they do a similar course with I think my second preference was chemical engineering and business at RMIT.
Oh, cool.
I think the only reason in the end I ended up going with Monash was because they do a common first year. So basically in your first year you do 8 subjects and get a taste of different types of engineering. And I think, lucky I ended up doing that because I thought I wanted to do chemical engineering. But once doing the common first year at Monash, I realised that probably my passions were more with civil. So my second preference was RMIT, but it was chemical engineering.
There you go. Now, this is a side question, kind of a bit off topic, but what are the different types or essentially majors of engineering? How do they differentiate? So you've mentioned civil, you've mentioned chemical. I can assume there's software.
Yep, there's software.
What else is there?
So then there's also mechanical.
Yep.
And aerospace. So those two are similar. They have a lot of subject overlap. But then with the aerospace, I should know this. My friends doing it, they sort of go into turbines and aerodynamics and stuff like that. But so there's mechanical, civil, aerospace, software. Then there's electrical.
Yep.
Electrical and computer systems, I think. And then also mechatronics.
Oh, cool. Lots of options. And I guess having that first year that is so broad, you can kind of get a taste of it all and see what you like.
Yep. And environmental as well. Can't forget. But then also at Monash, they do some other different ones resources engineering and mining and stuff like that. Yeah.
So many options if you are ever considering that. Now, going back to our normal chat, did you ever consider taking a gap year?
I actually didn't consider taking a gap year. I think I was really excited about starting uni, and I think I was more excited about the prospect of that than taking the year off to travel or work. Having said that, I was pretty lucky in both uni and school to sort of get the chance to do a lot of travel. So I think by the time I finished year 12, I was just really excited to start uni, and you hear a lot about, you know, the uni lifestyle, and I was super excited. So I didn't consider taking a gap year, no.
Fair enough. I guess you wanted to just like get stuck into it.
Yeah.
Now, let's reflect back to your first day of uni, or maybe the first week. What was it like, the transition from high school to university?
Yeah, I found it quite good. I was sort of lucky enough I like to say I convinced my friend to do engineering.
Oh my goodness.
He was looking at doing science at Melbourne, and I saw him at the careers event in like the Science at Melbourne room.
Yep.
And I went and spoke to his mum, and I was like, I think you'd really enjoy engineering.
Are you a promoter?
Yeah, because I wanted a friend. And then she had a chat to him, and she was like, would you consider engineering? And yeah, he ended up he's doing aerospace engineering and science.
Yep.
So I was sort of lucky enough to have that friend in my first lectures and first classes. But yeah, also we were sort of able to make some new friends. And I think on that first day, everyone's very nervous and everyone's trying to meet new people. So I think at least in our course, because it's quite structured, it's sort of easier to make those friends in your first year, because you're sort of all going from maths to, you know, your first class, and then you've got that next class together. So because of the structure and the contact hours as well, I found it quite easy to make friends in engineering, and everyone's really trying to help out with that workload.
That's so good to know. So what's your biggest piece of advice for someone coming into a course, especially like this where it is quite big, I'm assuming, to make friends?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of easy to get overwhelmed at the prospect of making friends in uni, but I think like with most things, you just sort of have to take that small step. So, you know, if you're in your first prac class and you've ended up sitting next to someone, just, you know, try and make a little bit of conversation with them, ask them how their day's going, you know, might add them on Facebook, and that's how a friendship forges. That's how most of the friendships forge. And then if you do that in every class, you get to, you know, make a lot of friends. And it definitely starts little, but it's also something that's always evolving through uni. Like you might get to a fourth year class, and a lot of people at that point are still trying to make friends, because at the end of the day, I think if you have friends in uni, it makes the experience a lot easier.
Definitely.
You can help each other out.
I'll just reiterate, do not stress if you don't have friends. Like sitting next to someone in, like you said, like the first prac, it's totally fine. Just like, oh, hey, like, what are you studying? Like they might be doing the same, they might be doing different. And then again, the just convo starts from there. I was next going to ask you about all the subjects in your first year. How closely did they relate to what you had done in VCE? Like I'm assuming you'd have to do quite intense math subjects. Was that related to methods? Do you kind of wish maybe it was like spec that you'd done?
Yeah. So I think I didn't do spec, so I had to do a catch-up course for spec and physics.
Did everyone have to do that if they didn't do spec?
Yep. So if you didn't do spec, you had to do the makeup sort of course to get you on track for the next maths. And then also the same with physics. If you didn't do physics, you had to do that physics class as well. So I had to do both of those. And then I think on top of that spec class, there's another 2 maths classes, and then that's all for maths.
Okay.
But they do come up, obviously, in your regular classes. There's a lot of maths involved there. But yeah, that's probably one of the more challenging aspects that I found in my first year was the amount of maths. I don't struggle too much with the maths that's in the course. So say the maths required in calculating the forces of something. But when it's the pure math subjects, you know, differential equations and stuff like that, I didn't think that was really my strength. But yeah, I had to work pretty hard at it, and it turned out okay.
Oh, good. For someone who doesn't see themselves as such a lover of maths, were there opportunities to get help if you were struggling, or even in physics? Because I know there's a lot of maths in that, especially in those first years.
Yeah, so I think with the maths especially, there was a lot of help. So I know that when I did it, we had this thing called the MLC, so the Maths Learning Centre.
Okay, yep.
And basically that was open 9 to 5 in the maths building, and there was always tutors manning it. So at any time you could walk in and you just tell them what unit you're doing, and most of them were absolute geniuses. So they didn't even have to be specific to that subject. And you could ask them any question, whether it be, you know, with an assignment or with your practice questions or exam revision, and they would pretty much all be equipped to help. So I think with the maths specifically, they had a great program in place to help out.
That's really good to know, especially if someone has their heart set on Eng and they're like, oh, I'm not really sure how I'm going to go at the start.
Yep.
You do have that support, which is really great. So if you had a do-over with your subject, would you have picked physics
100%.
and spec
Yep.
to not do this extra catch-up?
Yeah, could have got a few fun electives in there, but I think I would definitely have done physics instead of French. Not to say I didn't enjoy it. My French class ended up only being 4 people, and we had
my goodness.
so much fun. But I think for me, I really picked French maybe for the markup more than the passion of the language, I guess. And I think in the end it sort of came to, I didn't do bad. It ended up getting marked up 12, I think. So
Jesus Christ, that's great.
Yeah, so it ended up fine, but I think it comes back to that thing of like, if you're doing a subject you enjoy, you'll do better in it.
100%.
So I wish I had done physics just because, yeah, it is quite relevant to my course, but also I think I would have enjoyed it, so worked harder at it. But also, I think maybe I could have done like a business subject because I ended up going into commerce with no experience with legal, accounting, business management.
And economics as well. Like you'd have to do introductory like micro and macro. And so having no experience of that.
Yeah, it was a steep learning curve with a lot of the commerce stuff as well.
Now, we talked about Eng, but with your commerce side, with the first year subjects, how did you cope with those?
Yeah, so I think I really enjoyed the first year commerce subjects because I'd never done it before. A lot of the commerce students who had done a lot of those VCE business units found there to be a lot of overlap. But for me, it was like a whole new kettle of fish. I was doing, micro, marketing, management, and I hadn't done any of it before. I think I struggled a little bit with the essays. I wasn't too, hadn't done too many essays in the past, especially with engineering. It's mainly reports, which I found a lot more manageable. But yeah, so with management, I know we had one, I think 3,000 word essay, and I was just dreading it. But yeah, other than that, I enjoyed it. I found it pretty interesting. But I do think probably with engineering and commerce on a personal level, sometimes the commerce didn't get as much attention as it deserved.
Oh, fair enough. And that's totally normal as well. And moving through and progressing through your course, let's say second, third year, how do you pick the major for commerce and then for Eng? When do you decide?
Yep. So with Eng, it's at the end of the year, and basically
first year.
Yeah, at the end of first year, you nominate a specialisation, and hopefully you get it, unless it's really skewed in one direction. But yeah, I think I always sort of knew I wanted to do civil from doing the first year introductory unit. And then with commerce, it's the same. So you do all your introductory units, and then you choose a major, and then you do another 8 units within that major.
Yep. Now, we talked about the different majors for Eng. So you've got like your civil, your software, chemical. But for commerce, we're talking like accounting, finance, management, marketing. What else is there? International relations, maybe? No, international business.
There's actually there's 2 interesting ones that I looked at. One is behavioural commerce.
Oh, cool.
And it's sort of like a bit of, I looked really into doing it. It's sort of a bit of economics, but also a little bit of psych.
Yep.
And then there's also a new one, sustainability, which I think is a little bit of economics as well. But yeah, I did look at that, ended up going with finance.
Yeah, and why did you choose finance?
That's a great question, because when I did the commerce introductory units, I think they've changed since, but there was no introductory finance unit.
Oh.
So I'd sort of had a taste of every other major except finance, and
you still chose it.
I know. I really don't know why. A lot of students who do commerce and engineering end up going with finance. I think because it is sort of marketed as the more mathsy major, and I sort of enjoyed that side of things.
For sure. Honestly, it kind of it goes hand in hand. You've got the math side in the finance, and then the math side in the engineering. So I guess you're not writing essays like you would for marketing.
Exactly, yeah.
So I get where your strengths are. Now, were there any subjects outside of those core finance and then core civil engineering that you could do that were fun? So any cool things that you did?
So I've probably done 2 really fun units. The first one would have to be leadership principles and practices in Prado. So I did that.
Now, Prado's in Italy, by the way.
Yeah, so I did that in Italy at the end of my first year. And that was I had 1 commerce elective in my degree and 1 capstone. You do the double degree. Often a lot of those electives sort of taken place by the other degree.
Yep.
But I was lucky enough to squeeze that one in, and I absolutely loved it. As you can imagine, in engineering and a finance degree, there's not a whole lot of stuff like that where you're doing essays and learning about leadership. So I absolutely loved it. And obviously being in Italy, I got to make a lot of friends as well. And another one that I did recently, just over the recent winter was capstone unit business and sustainable practice. And it was really good because you got to pick a business and then evaluate them. So interview them. I ended up picking my mum's pharmacy, got to interview her, and then I guess evaluate their operations with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, and then provide like a feedback report to them on how they can improve their sustainable practices, which I really enjoyed because sustainability can often be really overwhelming. But when you sort of look at it from this scope, you sort of just provide them with a report that, you know, do these 25 things and you can make your business more sustainable. And I think they appreciated it as well.
Wow. And that's one way to actually put what you've learned into practice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about the structure of seminars, lectures, tutorials? Take us through like year by year. Did it say you've had a heavy load throughout? How's it worked?
Yeah, so I think with engineering, there is a few contact hours because of the labs and pracs and stuff like that. So it depends on the unit. So with the maths unit, there's 3 lectures a week and then 1 practice class. But with a lot of other units, such as in civil, you have geomechanics and water systems. Those will have a prac and a lab, where the prac class is doing questions assisted by teaching assistants, and then the lab is more of like an experiment side of things where you then come out of that and write a report with the experiment you've done. But yeah, then they all have lectures as well, and often they'll even give you some pre-lecture videos, so that's good.
Oh, of course. Okay, this sounds like a lot. So in your first year, how many days a week were you at uni?
Well, it's probably not a good reflection, but due to my poor skills with the timetabling system, I was there 5 days a week.
Oh, okay. So if you were good at timetable?
Yeah, you could probably get it into 2 big days.
Okay. That's all right.
If you're lucky. So it's definitely, so now I've sort of been better at getting it into 2 or 3 days. It really depends. Sometimes they're annoying. Like one class will only run on a Thursday and one will only run on a Monday. But yeah, it's probably about 2 days of work. But it depends if you like going to your lectures. So I really enjoyed going to all of them in my first year. So I was probably in 3 or 4 days or 5 days even. But yeah, I think last year I was only in about 2 days and did my lectures all online.
Yeah, totally fair enough. And now, what about putting all this theory you learned into practice? I know you talked about that sustainability subject, but were you required to complete any internships as part of commerce or engineering?
Yeah, so with commerce, the only requirement is the capstone unit that I mentioned before, but you can do that as a work integrated learning if you want to. So they will sort of help you find that placement and then you can get the subject done that way. With engineering, at Monash, you have to do 420 hours of continuous professional development, CPD. And it doesn't have to be all work. It can be volunteering. It can be networking. It can be events. If you help out at an open day, it can be that. So some of it has to be engineering and then some of it can be just regular involvement that you've had.
Wow, I actually had no idea. That's great. But if you wanted to complete, say, an external intern, how do you go about finding one?
Yeah, so I think with that, there is a lot of things I guess you can do if you are looking to get that experience. And a lot of them are just reaching out to places that you found online. One probably underrated method is reaching out to lecturers. So often like lecturers have been in the field and then they've come into teaching and have a lot of experience and can often direct you into the right place. Even if you come to them and say, I've really loved this unit and I actually caught up with one of my lecturers after the unit was finished and I basically got a coffee with him and said, I've really enjoyed this unit. It was derivatives in finance.
Oh my goodness, I don't know anyone that's enjoying derivatives.
I loved it, yeah. And then I basically said, like, what does a job in this field look like? And he sat with me and talked me through it, told me some places. So there's that way. Then there's just emailing and sending your resume out. So I emailed my resume to a place in my first year and they basically emailed me back saying, we're not looking for someone. 6 months later, they took me in for an interview and I ended up working there for 3 years. So
wow. Was that a commerce-inspired role or engineering?
That was an engineering company. They do testing for major projects and I guess, yeah, making sure that the strength of construction materials is up to spec with Australian standards. And yeah, I absolutely loved that. And that was just from sending my resume out and hoping for the best as well. So yeah, a lot of networking opportunities as well is a great way to find out more about places you want to work at. But yeah, like I said, I would definitely recommend reaching out to lecturers, because usually if they're lecturing a subject, they know quite a bit about what it looks like in practice as well.
For sure. Now, I know because I did commerce at Melbourne. So based on my experience, what typically happens is you get to like your second year and people will start going for and applying for summer vacationer positions. And they're at big companies in the city, or even some smaller firms where they'd be in audit or in tax, or maybe like consulting. Did you apply for any of those, or did you kind of favour the engineering side?
I ended up applying to both, but definitely more engineering.
Yep.
I guess some of those companies have teams in infrastructure advisory, and I was sort of always interested in working in infrastructure. So yeah, I ended up applying to a few eng and a few com as well.
Okay, cool. What about the application process between them both? Were there any differences?
I found them to be quite similar, but I found a lot of the time the commerce ones are a little bit more involved, maybe had a few extra steps in there. So usually starting out with the psychometric test, potentially a video interview. However, when I applied, it was a COVID world, so I didn't have to go in for any assessment centres or anything like that. But the video interview I think was across most of the applications I did, both Eng and Com.
For sure. And let's say someone misses out on gaining external internship experience. Is there another way that they can gain experience in either field that you think? You actually did provide some great ideas before about, meeting with the lecturer, but anything else that you think we've missed? So
there's definitely ways to get experience other than summer internships, and that would probably be working part-time alongside your study at these companies. Not all companies offer that sort of thing, so yeah, it would probably just come down to researching what companies you're after. I know I sent my resume out to a few. If I would just drive past a company and it would there was one near my street, it was like structural engineering consulting, I sort of wrote it down and sent out an email like that. So I think emailing out your resume is always a good idea, because nothing bad will come of it. But
yeah, of course. Just put yourself out there, really.
Yeah,
just give it a go. Now, let's talk about travel. Now, you mentioned you did go to Prato, which was in Italy. Tell us a bit about that application process. Did you have to submit anything, interview?
Yep. So I found out about this basically from an email that I got from the uni saying, would you like to apply to do this subject because it fits within your course map? And so there was an application process where you basically had to outline your intentions of coming on the trip and then talk a little bit about leadership experience, because it was about leadership. I know a few of them you have to sort of film yourself doing like a fun little video or a bit of...
Did you have to do that?
No, I didn't. Luckily, there's one fun one they do in New York that I've looked at a few times, and they'll give you a statement and they'll be like, provide in a video what this means to you, so you can sort of make
that's so
a fun
funny
little video. So luckily I didn't have to make a video for my one, but so a lot of time they do an application process like that, just so they can, I guess, get to know the people that are applying. But there was a study requirement there that you have to have completed a certain number of credit points.
Okay. So you can't go first semester.
Yep. I think that usually that just so you've had a few units under your belt.
For sure. Did you have to have a certain WHAM? And for people who don't know what a WHAM is, it's a weighted average mark. So it's like your overall average across your all subject. Was there a requirement?
I think there was. I think it was a credit.
Oh, okay. What's a credit?
A credit is a 60 at Monash. I think it changes. But sometimes a high, depending on demand, I think.
Yep.
So I think the one I applied to, it was either 60 or 65. Some of them, if they're really competitive, they'll be up 70. I've never seen 75, but I guess it just depends on the unit.
Cool. Funding for the trip, did you get any grants or did you have to pay for it yourself?
Yep, so you could get a grant and then you could also potentially put it on the OS Help Loan as well. I think the HEX.
Yep, gotcha. And then what about the study requirements? Like, did you have to produce something, say an essay or some piece of work that proved that I'm not just going for a holiday, I'm going to actually study?
Yep, so there were several assignments during the trip and activities that we had to do. And then at the end of the trip, there was I think it was a 4,000 word essay. I love essays. But yeah, I sort of dreaded that. But it was interesting because it was a reflection on your own leadership style.
Oh, so you could write whatever.
Well, you know what's harder than writing an essay is writing one about yourself
and
your own leadership styles. I struggled with that a lot, but it was due a few weeks after the trip, and I ended up traveling after the trip as well. So I remember being with my best friend in France, and like
did you use your French?
No, I didn't use my French. But I was like, I've got to really got to write this essay, and like an hour would pass and I'd write like 100 words. But no, I got there in the end. But yeah, it was sort of interesting now even to look back on that essay and what I thought in 2017 versus now.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Do you think your leadership styles have changed?
Yeah, I think they have. I mean, going into that thing, I think a lot of my leadership experience was in cadets at school.
Yep.
Being the platoon commander, I think was where I got a lot of leadership experience at school. But I think since then, yeah, I've had a lot more, I guess, diverse experiences in sport and in co-curriculars and stuff like that. But it was interesting because it wasn't just reflecting, it was sort of looking into like the leadership styles at the time and stuff like that, which I thought, yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Awesome. Now let's talk about exchange. Just chatting with you off mic earlier, you did mention that you were actually going to go on exchange. Unfortunately, COVID did stop that. So it's nice that I can speak to you in person today, but otherwise you would have been on the other side of the world. Tell us all about this exchange.
Yes, so I was devastatingly, I got accepted to go to DTU in Denmark, I think Denmark Technical University.
Yep.
It's an engineering school in Copenhagen. So I was very excited about that, but obviously COVID happened. So I had applied for that. It is quite a lengthy application process, but a lot of it's quite straightforward as well, in terms of just filling out the forms, getting approval. And I guess the hardest part for that was finding the units that match up with that partner university so that you can get credited for your units back home.
Okay, so what you're pretty much saying is you have to complete 4 units, is that right?
Yeah.
So 4 units over there at their university that kind of equate to 4 units over here so that you can successfully like tick off your requirements for your engineering degree.
Yep.
What made you choose that destination?
Yeah, so I think in engineering at Monash, they have a big spreadsheet of units that people have done in the past and what units they correlate to. So luckily they emailed that to me, and I think I found a lot of units that matched up, but also one of my friends had gone there 2 years prior. So she basically said that it was fantastic. Probably just talking to a lot of people from different places as well. I know one of my friends went to NC State and then the other went to DTU in Europe. So it was really just about what I was looking for, going to Europe and having a good exchange. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
Do you think you'll go next year? Can you fit it in?
I'm thinking about it. I have 3 semesters left, so you usually have to apply around a year before or just under a year before. So I'm thinking about it, maybe in my last semester, but the thing about going on exchange in your last semester is that it may take a few months for them to verify that you completed the units.
Right, yeah.
So if you are sort of looking to start work directly after, you may run into a bit of an issue in terms of getting that certification.
Yeah, for sure. Well, good luck. Hopefully you can go. I guess the world is all uncertain with travel, but at least you did get a bit of travel experience with going to Italy for that subject in Prado. Now, what I do want to talk about is about networking. So opportunities to kind of get yourself out there, develop your skills. Any advice for someone either starting out in your course to start networking?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all feel a little bit of nerves around networking, and it is really scary to put yourself out there in a situation with a lot of professionals standing in a room and asking them about it. And I guess a lot of the time we feel like we don't really know what's out there. But that's really what it's all about, finding out what opportunities lie out there, because often sort of what you do in practice is often different to what you learn at uni. So My advice would be try and get to as many networking events as you can, and it always helps to sort of bring someone with you. I was sort of lucky enough to meet someone who was a few years older than me at uni, so she sort of encouraged me to get down. We have one event at Monash called Beers with Engineers, so it's one of the bigger...
Oh, Beers with Engineers. Yeah. That's sick.
Yeah, our sort of engineering society runs it every year, so that's one of the more awaited events. But once you've done a few, they become a lot easier.
Of course.
In terms of having like good networking discussions, I would always recommend sort of asking that person what they enjoy about their job, what's their favourite part of it, what things were they expecting, what things were they not expecting. Ultimately, it helps you find out what you want to do. So, earlier in the year, I went to a networking event in the city. I was able to find out a little bit about what that company is all about, which sort of motivated me to apply to the company. And I guess once you apply and you're in those interview situations, you know a little bit more about what they do, so you're more equipped to sort of handle some of those questions, and you know why you're applying because you know what you're after.
For sure. Now, at unis, there's always like clubs, societies, and something else. I can't remember what it's called. But did you get involved in any of these like clubs or societies? Yeah,
I did. I was sort of slow to get involved. A lot of people join the clubs and societies straight away, which I would definitely recommend because it's a great way to make friends. But I didn't initially join any of the clubs until I think I was in my third year. And
wow.
I applied for a student team, Precious Plastic Monash. I guess the timing was right. They were advertising for a role for like a finance officer, and I was, studying finance and really wanted to be on the team, interested in sustainability. So I ended up applying there and absolutely loved being on the team. It's definitely been one of the highlights of my uni experience. But yeah, I've been there now, I think, for just over a year, and I've absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. Could you tell us a little bit more how like the team works? So the team, what do they run, and then do you put on events, and what do you do in your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Monash, basically there's teams, clubs, and societies. So basically I'm in a team. So the engineering faculty has a number of teams. So one of our bigger teams is like Monash Motorsport. So they like have like a race car and they race.
That's so cool.
Yeah, international events and stuff like that. So we have, I think, a number of teams. But our team is Precious Plastic Monash, and we're basically a sustainability student team. We have about 5 divisions that we design and fabricate recycling machines. And then we have other divisions that, say, make products with the machine. We do outreach events and sort of teach people about plastic recycling and sustainability. So I'm the team lead currently of the team. So that's basically involves working closely with upper management of the team and, I guess looking at the direction and the vision of the team and making sure that everyone's getting what they want out of the team and that it's running well. And I've, thoroughly enjoyed.
That's great. I guess you could put in your leadership expertise from that subject. I know I keep relating to it, but everything links. It's great. And outside of uni, how have you balanced uni life, work, casually, part-time, and a social life?
Yeah, so that's probably something that has been my biggest challenge in uni in my first year. I definitely didn't nail it. I started playing footy in my first year, and I think I just didn't get the balance right with studying, and I was working a little bit at a pharmacy, and it's something I've gotten better at. But I think for me, I think the balance just comes down to studying effectively.
Yep.
So I know you do hear it all the time, but like I could do 2 hours of study and get a lot done, or I could spend an hour a whole day doing the same thing. So I just make sure that when I study very effectively, but also I'm quite meticulous with the calendar as well. So that I make sure that, because with Precious Plastic, I have a lot of meetings.
Yep.
So I have to be really effective outside of that time, because I was also working at the time playing sport. So as long as I think I schedule things in really well and be really effective with my study time, it all ends up okay. But obviously we all have those weeks where we feel like
the world is ending.
Everything's due. But usually that's week 12 for me. But,
I was gonna say around exam times or swap back, that's when everything comes on at the same time. Now let's talk next steps. So you're not graduating just yet, but when you do, what kind of careers or jobs are available to you? I guess you've got commerce options and engineering options. Are you picking one? And what does that look like?
I think for me, I've always been more passionate about engineering.
Yep.
I've mentioned this before, but I really do like learning. But for me, I think I clicked with it more and I found it more interesting. So I think I was always sort of looking to go on down the engineering path. But even that in itself leaves quite a lot of options open. I think with civil engineering, there's a lot you can do with it. So whether it is being in construction on site as like a site engineer, or doing maybe more the design side of things, or working for a council has really great opportunities for civil engineers as well. So I think it's definitely been a goal of mine to learn about all those industries before I try and commit myself to one of them, because I just think once you're more informed, you're sort of in a better position to apply. So yeah, that's what I've sort of been doing for the past few months, trying to speak to as many people as I can, organising coffee catch-ups to learn, what do you do in your job? Luckily, sort of my older friends have graduated and gone into all these different fields, so I've been catching up with them as well. But yeah, I think I'm really interested in the design side of things as well, and putting a lot of those things I've learned into practice on some big projects. It's a very exciting time in Victoria at the moment to be in civil engineering, because you have a lot of infrastructure projects coming up.
That's great. That's awesome. And after uni, would you ever consider doing more study?
Great question. I don't think at the moment I would. I've always sort of told myself I would consider doing an MBA after uni, but
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think as I found myself becoming more and more passionate about going into the engineering field, at the moment I really just see myself going there and seeing how it goes. But yeah, I definitely don't have too much of a rigid plan for the future, so I definitely wouldn't rule out future study.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what, there's so much time to decide, like, whether you jump into work, you might find a different path, something that you love, and that's totally normal too. Now, what we're going to go through, I've got 5 different categories, and I just want you to rate them out of 5. Yep. So this is just about your course. I know you haven't finished, but you've completed the majority of it. So 5 being amazing, incredible, absolutely love it. 1 being not so much. So the first category is quality of the teachers, the lecturers, the tutors.
Yep, I'm probably going to go with 5.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time they're absolutely fantastic, and I'm definitely the type of student that will email them outside of business hours.
But you know what? That's actually not embarrassing. That's not nerdy. Like, literally annoy the shit out of them, because that's what they're there to do. Yeah,
exactly. And they always reply. Often they end up knowing my name. And
I love it. And they're like, hey, Steph.
Yeah, me again.
Cool. All right. What about workload?
Yeah, is that like study load?
Yeah, so study load. Look, this could go either way, because you could be like, 1, I'm always studying, or you could be like 5, it's manageable. So I guess it's personal experience.
I'm going to say 4 because it's very manageable, but I've only recently learnt what effective studying is.
So it's taken you 4 years to work out a study technique. Okay, fair enough. What is your study technique? Side question.
Well, what I've learnt recently is that it changes for every unit. I think in my first year, I tried to put a rigid plan onto every unit, and that would be make handwritten notes, do every practice question, do every exam. But now that I'm in 4th year, like, for example, I did 3 units this semester. 1, I didn't take notes for because the lecture slides were impeccable. So there was a lot of graphs and stuff. So whatever I needed, they were all on the slides.
Yep.
1 unit I did typed notes because there was so much content, and 1 unit I did handwritten notes because there wasn't too much content, but it was very conceptual, so you learnt a lot from the handwritten notes. So I guess my number 1 tip is really try and read the unit early on. See, is there a lot of content? Is there not? Is it very conceptual? Is there a lot of graphs? And then make a plan on that.
That is really great advice, because if you can nail that in your first year, you'll save a lot of time, energy, and stress.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, back to the quick 5 out of 5. Now, the next one is social life of your course.
Yep. I'm going to say 4. I'm sort of rarely will not go to something because of study.
Yep.
But 4 because usually if I sort of got a lot on that week, I will have to adjust my schedule a little bit to study more.
Yeah, for sure. And just fit everything in so you're not stressed. What about campus facilities? So like the classrooms that you'd learn in, the lecture theatres you'd sit in, or all the prac venues?
Yep. I'm going to say 4, but maybe moving into a 5 because they're redoing some of the engineering stuff at the moment. But yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I've found it to be awesome, but yeah, I don't expect too many high-class facilities. Honestly, going to the dumpling place underneath the engineering library with my friend has been the highlight of my whole uni.
What's it called? Are you going to give them a shout-out?
It's called Malong.
Love it. Well, if you ever want to find Steph and ask her a question, probably check her out at the dumpling place when they open up.
Underneath Hal. I'll see you guys there.
And last but not least, how well your course has prepared you for a career. And I know you're not jumping into a career just yet, but how prepared do you feel right now?
I'm going to say 5, but that is because I proactively have been getting involved. I've sort of done, even this year, a number of programs at Monash, such as sort of engineering leadership program, the co-op program. So I think if you seek those opportunities, you will feel quite prepared for the workforce. And even often just seeking those opportunities, you often get put on like a mailing list and they'll mail you lots of opportunities on email. So I think if you're quite proactive in just applying, I think in my 3rd year I just decided I'm just going to apply to everything that gets emailed to me. So and
that's a really good takeaway for anyone listening. It's honestly what you make of it. So if you're not putting yourself out there for like that cool subject overseas, or to go interstate, or to join the club, then you're not really going to get a breadth of experience to, you know, be awesome in your job or in your career. So yeah, honestly, put yourself out there from first year. It's not embarrassing. It will be so much better for you in the long run. Anyway, to conclude for today, what is something that you wish you knew when you were in year 11 or year 12? So what's something you want to tell yourself that you wish you knew?
I think for me, I did touch on this a little bit earlier. It's just getting really in tune with how you operate and not comparing yourself to other people. So I think coming into uni, I've realized that there are not 2 types of people. There's so many different types of people. There'll be people in SWATVAC who wake up at 8 a.m. and go to bed at 11 and they don't take any breaks. They study the whole time. And then there'll be people who sleep until 10 a.m. Every day, do maybe 3 hours of study and then call it a day, and they'll be the most effective people at studying, and they'll end up explaining everything to you as you're sitting outside the exam. But don't compare yourself to any of those people. Just be really in tune with yourself. Listen to yourself. If you feel like coming into exam, there's an area that you're not really sure about and you've been avoiding it, it's often about doing the uncomfortable thing and tackling it head on. But if you feel like you're really prepared and it's still a day before your exam, listen to that, take the day off, go for a walk, don't overstudy for it, and just being in tune with yourself and not comparing to anyone else.
Very wise words, Steph. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I've absolutely loved chatting. Now, I wanted to ask if anyone does have any questions about studying at Monash, or maybe Bachelor of Commerce or Bachelor of Engineering that you are studying, can they reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. Feel free. I have got a few messages from younger people from our school asking me just about subject selection or what they would recommend. And I'm always happy to help out. Amazing.
So what I'll do is I'll pop Steph's LinkedIn in the show notes, and I'll also be able to tag her. So if you want to find it, you will be able to. But yeah, thanks, Steph.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
If you like this episode or have any more questions, head over to our Instagram at the.studentspace. Now there is a full stop between the and student. And just remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not provide any personal advice. Thank you for all your support, everyone. See you later.